Races never stop. Stage 1 of the Dauphiné, we have an absolutely not stacked GC start list. At the Dauphiné, it's basically Ineos against the world. They've brought Thomas, Amador, Gegenhardt, Kwiatkowski, Port, Carlos Rodriguez, and Dylan van Baarle. They were going to have Carapaz, and then they decided even that would be a bit too much. I think their big contenders are Christopher Clive Froome, Miguel Angel Lopez, Valverde, and Enric Mas. So all three of them supposed to be leaders, but none of them the leaders at Movistar, so that's going to be fun. Hopefully Kelderman going for a good result at Bora. He's had terrible luck so far this season. McNulty, nope, I don't think so, given the profiles we have here. And Haig and Turns are going for GC at Bahrain Victorious. I think they pulled out poles. And Quintana's here as well for Arkea Samsic. But we didn't have time to do a preview, I'll be honest with you, and we're not going to do a full preview. All I can say is stage 8 is nasty and stage 7 has got some big climbs in it too. You need to be able to climb. There's no sprint. The best sprinter here is Sonny Colbrelli. So I think that tells you about the parkour we have here at the Dauphiné. First stage, Issoire de Issoire, 183 Ks. They do a circuit of a 3.2K climb, followed shortly after by a 1.6, 4.8% climb. Tailwind finish. No real, as I said, no big sprinters teams, and Ineos probably not too fussed on letting Kwiatkowski go up the road for a stage win, despite, the "we ride differently" jargon. Break had a chance. Who was in it this morning, Benji?
So one of the first riders to be in it was Brent van Muer, Lotto rider. He's got a bit of a history the last 2 weeks, but he was accompanied by 3 other riders in the breakaway today, and they weren't necessarily the riders that you would be calling out for a potential stage win with a breakaway. So Ian Garrison on the Koenig, we had Cyril Gauthier for B&B Hotels and Patrick Gamper for Bora Hansgrohe. Gamper is more of a bit of a punchy with a bit of a sprint, something like that. That's what I see as Gamper, but a good ruler as well, if I remember correctly. But this breakaway, while those riders don't necessarily shout, "Oh, breakaway victory," they do have really strong flat skills, like they can keep on pacing, except for Gauthier perhaps, who's more of the climber type in this breakaway. I think this breakaway was holding on to a decent gap, but we saw that a few teams in the peloton were very eager to try and set things up for their hilly sprinter. I wouldn't say fully sprinter, because we saw that Bahrain and
Climby
UAE.
Sprinty boy.
Climby sprinty boy. That's exactly what is true. And we saw that they were trying to set things up for the sprinters that indeed have hilly capabilities. And UAE did that for Christoph, and I think Bahrain was trying to do so for Colbrelli. They were pacing basically the majority of the stage until we arrived into, was it the last 25 kilometers when we saw the breakaway split up a bit?
Yeah, so Brent van Moer, he was the strongest in the break, and I thought he was doing what in Catalunya, Lotto Soudal, they wanted to get one of their young riders into the climbing jersey, the KOM classification jersey. And I think in Catalunya stage 1, that was their target. Then they got caught by Movistar. But Brent van Moer dropping the break on those climbs. I think Padun and Haller chasing for Bahrain Victorious. We saw riders getting dropped. Pedersen getting dropped very early on that pressure. Christoph not, but eventually he was later. So UAE, it was tough because UAE, if we don't chase hard enough, we're not going to catch the break. But if we chase too hard, we could drop Christoph. I think they would have been better to have a Rui Costa type actually to attack on the final climb. Tim Wellens, one of the men for the stage, was never going to attack because he's got Brent van Moer in that breakaway. So it was a really difficult stage for teams to control. When did Brent van Moer eventually go clear, Benji? It was one of the last climbs, I think.
Yes, it was one of the last climbs on which Ineos was basically trying to control every small attack in that. Well, I could call it the lead group, but it was basically the majority of the peloton that was still there, except for the real sprinters, like you mentioned. But Brent van Moer was dropping, I think, Gamper as the final rider that was in his wheel. And Brent van Moer is a decent time trialist. He's got decent time trialing results. So him going alone means that he doesn't think that the tempo of Gamper is strong enough, or Gamper can't follow his pace that he's trying to set up at the front of the group. And Van Moer can really keep up a decent pace for quite a while. I think that a good comparison is made by Thomas de Gent himself, who says that Brent van Moer is the new Thomas de Gent on Twitter today. So I honestly find it a perfect comparison from the types of things we've seen him do recently. But he made that move indeed. He dropped Gumper, and he had, I think, a 50-second gap still at the top of that climb on that elite group. That was with a good 11K to go, 10K to go.
11
But
exactly.
the problem there is that it has a descent first. And if it has a descent first, then it's hard for the peloton to try and catch back up. And we saw some movements in the peloton as well. A different team trying to take control once that descent was done, trying to crawl back a 50-second gap. And who was that?
Well, Felix Gall for DSM attacked off the Ineos pace, and 11Ks, 50 seconds doesn't sound much, but Ineos weren't interested in the stage. They kept Kwiatkowski behind. Perhaps I thought maybe you let Kwiatkowski have a crack at attacking on the final climb, given an opportunity. But yeah, it's GC teams controlling, and they don't care about Brent van Moer taking 40 to 50 seconds. They're going to take that back and more in the later stages in this Dauphiné. So yeah, DSM trying to send it right up the road. Askren obviously was feeling it because I thought he might have been one of the guys to attack on that final climb, and TT on the downhill back to Brent van Moer, but he stayed in the peloton. And yeah, it was basically bike exchange pacing late. I think with 8Ks to go on that descent, they seemed pretty tired. They obviously had Caden Groves in the group. He's their sprinter here. And I mean, so it makes sense, but bike exchange hadn't helped Bahrain or UAE earlier in the day. And so that gap of 3 minutes, which had been brought down progressively, it's still too big when Van Moer goes clear. And this kind of reminded me of the Taco van der Hoorn Giro stage win, where you got sprinters teams with climbing sprinters trying to reduce the bunch, but they then take the foot off the gas and they underestimate the strength of the guy up the road. And that's what happened today with Brent van Moer. Once we saw it at 6Ks, 50 seconds, I thought, are we getting Italian time gaps? Except we're in France today. That time gap was correct. He was just holding the gap exactly to a tired, I think, Howson in bike exchange. And he managed to win this stage despite As You Deserve Citroën, I think with Venturini, their sprinter for today, deciding they should start pacing with 2.5Ks to go. Benji mentioned this on Twitter with a 48-second gap, which wasn't particularly helpful to anybody. But yeah, big win for Brent van Moer. And I'm not sure if you mentioned, Benji, what happened? Was this his first pro win? Did something weird happen, which I didn't see with him at Ronde van Limburg last week?
Yes, indeed. This was his first proper pro win. And what happened, I think, the stage that Merlier won in the Ronde van Limburg, the one we mentioned in our Disrespecting the Race video we did the other day on this same LRCP YouTube channel. Well, Merlier won a stage, and Merlier won that because Brent van Moer was actually going solo the same exact way that he did in today's Dauphiné stage. But in the last portion of the race, somewhere in the last 10 kilometers, one of those people signaling that he should follow the road in a certain direction had his flag a bit waving, in the middle of two roads. And unfortunately, Brent van Moer went into the wrong one and was directed into the wrong lane, basically. He went the other way. And the peloton therefore ended up winning the stage. So a real bummer, because he would have most likely won that stage quite simply the exact same way as today. So this could have been the second time he did it in the span of a week and a half now, which is crazy because we're going to see a lot more from this guy. And not only in this kind of stuff, he's a decent time trialist. And therefore, I do believe that Brent van Moer could be really fun to watch in the coming years, I think.
Definitely one to watch. Here's the full stage results. Sonny Colbrelli. I was worried this would happen this morning when I saw the profile, saw the wind direction. I was like, poor Sonny Colbrelli is going to win the bunch sprint for second, and that's exactly what happened. Brent van Moer first, Sonny Colbrelli second, Venturini third, Sturven fourth, which is why Trek Segafredo were pacing despite Pedersen being dropped early in the stage. Caden Groves, quite a nice result, actually fifth. Pol at sixth, Kwiatkowski, Askren, Arambaru, and Valverde 10th. Tomorrow, stage 2, 173 Ks long, and it's climbing on the menu once again, and possible the break can win again. Flat for the first 45 kilometers, then they do 8.6 Ks, 7.2%, descent, 9 Ks, 4%, rolling sort of ridge line with sort of 4K, 4% climbs, a collection of those, then another descent to the finish before 7.1 Ks at 6.5%, false summit, descent, and then 1.3 Ks, 5%, and then descent of 4 Ks to the finish. Now, if Greg Van Avermaet got in the break, if he was on really good form, I quite like him from this. He's can be competitive on climbs like this, depending on the break composition, and Ineos won't be concerned about him. Otherwise, David Gaudu. I mean,
How
do you think
dare you?
what you don't you think GVA's got no chance?
Alex Aramburu is gonna win this stage, man.
That's actually a good shout, though.
It's in the stars.
Nah, based on Basque Country, that's actually he should if he's climbing like there, he should be okay, right?
I'm guessing so, but it really depends on what happens here, because you could say that if the peloton somehow, somewhere, somebody's interested in doing something on this stage and keeps the pace, then perhaps an Ineos will set up a pace on that final uphill section, and perhaps we get something weird. But I'd find that weird, because then you'd have to have someone attack from your team and actually keep it on the flat section on top. So that's why I'm looking towards perhaps an Aramburu or something to make a move in that aspect. But I'm kind of doubting whether it's a break stage. I wouldn't know who it pays, but there has to be someone interested in trying to get a stage win here at some point. So perhaps Bahrain could try it again, but this time for turns instead of Colbrelli trying to go on that final section, something like that. I don't know. I'm more looking towards potential opportunities of people that are interested in doing it from the peloton, but I can't find too much at the moment.
I mean, yeah, maybe there's just going to be attacks on that final climb and a break gets caught. I think
Wellens?
Yeah, Wellens is a good option, as well as Gegenhardt and Kwiatkowski. I mean, it all depends on Ineos this race.
Yeah.
Like, if Gegenhardt pulls and sets up Kwiatkowski to go over the top, then I think he's a good option, because the other GC teams won't be completely panicking on Kwiatkowski, whereas Thomas, obviously, they're marking him. Do you think someone like Quintana, Miguel Angel Lopez are going to be pulling their cars? I mean, years ago, Benji, we'd be saying Valverde all day for this sort of stage in a reduced bunch finish. That his sprint's been kind of terrible lately, and so Valverde is a good option. That maybe there could be another break winning from, if the right people go on that last climb, like I'm trying to think, Simon Geschke sort of guys, if they attack on the climb, or Madouin, will Ineos care? No. So it could be an interesting stage. Could be not an interesting stage. I mean, McNulty's lost 4 minutes. He lost 4 minutes because I think he punctured, and then he had to come back, and then the pace went up on the climb. I'd love to see McNulty trying something on that final climb, kind of like in Basque Country. I think he'd be a good option too. Yeah. But yeah, any other racing on? Any other news, Benji, we need to inform people about?
Not that I'm currently aware of, but I'm pretty sure in about 5 minutes I'll be like, I forgot to say that. But I think that we've basically said everything we must on this Dauphiné. I think that the route is actually looking pretty interesting. It's not like the typical Dauphiné parkour, I'd say. Like, the last stage has that La Plagne finish, and I'm looking forward to seeing that, because I think it's been a while, or is it the first time that they're doing it? I don't remember, but it's been at least like a significant time that I heard that name. And they always test these climbs in the Dauphiné before they try and use them in the Tour de France in the coming years. So that's why the Dauphiné is always very interesting, because they might be just trying out La Plagne to test it out in the Tour de France in the coming years. And if it's good in the Dauphiné, then it could certainly fit in the Tour. So awesome stuff. Looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that you'll be here with every single episode with us.
All right, that's all from us today. We'll see you with Dauphiné Stage 2 recap tomorrow. Ciao.